And we are live. Welcome everyone to another IDEAChatCNY. It's your host, Tony, from the IDEA office at Syracuse University. For all of our first-time guests, IDEAChatCNY is a weekly web show for entrepreneurs, technologists, and innovators of all kinds. Today we'll be talking to Steve Seager about aggressive innovation. Feel free to use the hashtag IDEAChatCNY on Twitter. Share this link with your friends, family, and any of your colleagues. And feel free to hit the question button right here to submit any questions to Steve or myself, and we will answer those live on the air. And now just a little bit about Steve. So Steve is the strategy and communication principal consultant at Storywise in Amsterdam, all the way out in Amsterdam today. So this is a global movement. He's the Director of Communications on the Europe, Middle East, and North Africa Board for the International Association of Business Communicators, or the IABC. He consults on both global brands and innovative startups in tech and media. I'd like to welcome Steve to the show. You can reach Steve on Twitter. Link is below. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how you doing, Tony?
All right. So, can you hear me?
I can hear you. A bit roboty, but I can hear you.
All right. Okay. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a communicator, but I started out as a musician. Yes, I am. So I believe. Yeah, but I started as a musician. Half of my family are musicians, and the other half are in the military.
Nice.
So nice combination. And for the first 25 years, I was a musician. Wrote my songs, played my gigs, did the marketing and the PR, and then started to turn over towards communications, PR and marketing. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what are we going to talk about today? Tell our guests a little bit about what we're doing.
I'm going to talk about aggressive innovation and what that is. And I think really the starting point. Sorry, hold on, I've lost my notes here. Yeah, the starting point is actually that I was a musician first of all when I first got involved in tech in 1994, which was really at the time there was about 200 websites, and half of my friends were geeks. You know, real techies, and they had what they called a cyber cafe, which was like an amazing thing then. And whenever I finished a gig, I used to go down there and play Doom. So I was like, a real Doom freak. Yeah, and it was like, oh my God, we're on this thing, and like you can play Doom with somebody in America, and it was really incredible. So during that conversation, during just hanging out after these gigs. A guy showed me a little piece of software called See You, See Me, and that's basically this. It's Skype, but it was for business conferencing. So my head starts ticking over, and I'm thinking about, hold on, like we could do a gig in the cyber cafe, and could we actually put this over the T-Bone? It was even called then before it was the internet. So can we put this over the T-Bone and broadcast it live? Oh. So these techies are going, yeah, I guess we could actually, yeah. So because servers weren't too powerful in those days, we actually called up. They called up Sheffield University, and I said, "Hey, can we bounce our signal off your server and broadcast this?" So it was like, yeah, sure. So we actually broadcast it, and within a day or so, we got it broadcast on ZDF television in Germany. Then I got a phone call from the BBC. And they were saying, oh my God, what is this technology? What are you doing? Is this the future of music? And this is actually, really old school. I said, totally old school. Wow. So this actually sort of leads me straight into the point about the first point about innovation, because have you got the link there? There's a little link about what is innovation, and it's a really neat little video. It's worth checking out.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe if we just have a look at that.
Got that on screen.
Yeah. So maybe, it's 2 minutes. So maybe if we just click it and have a watch, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, loads of dots, huh? So, I think that video does a sort of really a really good a good job of setting out, you know, what innovation is. So it's about this about seeing the dots. It's about uncovering. So there's two things I want to talk about. One's uncovering, and the other is enframing. And these two ideas are from a geezer called Heidegger. So when we're talking about innovation on the uncovering side, it's about uncovering these dots. That's you know, just like I was in the early days in '94 with my geek mates, just finding out about this stuff, learning about this stuff. And this is a path I've never got off. You know, since '94, I've been following both the tech side and then the content side and the communication side. And the point about this is that it's something in another one of these links is Stephen Johnson, and I think he talks about where good ideas come from. And he basically talks about the cafe culture in the Enlightenment. And it's basically a philosopher sat down with a mathematician, with a natural scientist, with all these different people, sharing ideas across professions. And it's the cross-fertilization of ideas that really, really counts. So that's the sort of fairly standard, if you like, idea of innovation. So it's about uncovering dots and then connecting these dots and joining them up in a new way. But the second thing, which is quite distinct, is about enframing. That's Heidegger talks about the power to the stored power in collaborative ideas. And what this is about is typically when we're innovating, we only do the first part. So we uncover these dots and we connect them there. But the second one is really about enframing them in a context and framing them in the market. So, I mean, there's a lot of innovative companies in Holland, but 9 times out of 10 what I see is a whole bunch of people get together and they do this collaborative thing and they think of a great idea and like, you know, they innovate. And then when it comes to actual market, they think, okay, now how can we market it? How can we, you know, bring this to the bigger world? And that to me is, you only get aggressive innovation when you build this into your model from the start. And it's Charles Ledbetter in his presentation, which is another link I sent you there, another great little vid worth checking out. What he talks about is a great quote in there. He says, it's when the internet combines with passionate pro-am consumers that we really get that explosion of creative collaboration. So I know a lot of your guys are entrepreneurs and starting out as well. But if you really want to do aggressive innovation, build in your family and your friends and your consumers right from the very start. I'm not talking about beta testing or agile development and you know, rolling out and failing often and all this. I actually think that's, you know, bullshit. Actually, you should really build it right into the core of your model. It is, because it's just the same old thinking, which is, you know, here's a product. Now how do we market it? It's nonsense. You know, we have this amazing, you know, social technology in front of us. So build it in, and believe me, your mum has as many good ideas as your smartest developer, because they're really focused on the behavioral side. They go, how can I apply this? You know, what can I actually do with it? How does it make my life easier? And I think this is the big thing that I see many tech startups fail, is because they don't get down to that really human behavioral level quick enough. And what I call aggressive innovation is when you bind that into your actual development of your product, not in beta testing, but all the way back at the start in figuring out what is the most valuable aspect to focus on. What are the how are you going to connect the dots in a way that's actually positively adding value to somebody's behaviors? If you then do that, what you end up with is a sort of pre-made marketing plan, a pre-made communications plan. You have pre-made PR. It's built into the actual development of the concept of the routes. So that is basically what I wanted to frame. So it's like there is innovation, and aggressive innovation is not only uncovering through collaboration, but also enframing the idea and building in the behavioral aspects and the passionate consumer all the way from the start. And I think when you have all this together, then you've got aggressive innovation.
So it's interesting that you say that, because I think we're kind of kindred spirits in that. One of the challenges that I see for a lot of students is that they have these ideas for things. They look at their lives, they think of a solution to a problem that they have. And oftentimes a lot of people who are starting off continue on developing a product for themselves, rather than one, trying to solve a problem that others need solved, but then two, maintaining this tunnel vision because it's their idea, and for whatever reason they just, I guess, they're sucked into what this fake innovation is, if you will, just thinking, oh, I have a great idea, rather than being aggressive and building in the need, the real solution to the real problem that exists for whatever population of people that may be, whether it's in healthcare or social media or communication or whatever it is. So totally agree with that. Totally agree.
There's
I think
there's an element of fear in there. I think people often think about you have this idea, and like you said, you hold on to it so tight and you so want to make it work that you lose track of the second element, which is the end framing, the context of this idea. And it's amazing. There's a nice little quote, which is radical innovation has the highest amount of uncertainties. And I think it's these uncertainties that people struggle with. But, this is it. You don't, I'm in quote land now. Somebody else said, you can't discover a new land without losing sight of the shore. So you have to go that. You have to go. That's nicer.
I like that.
Yeah. So I think it's this gap between those two things that people sort of struggle with, because it is frightening. It is scary. What were those quotables again? One is radical innovation has the highest amount of uncertainties. And I think the other one was you can't travel to a new land without losing sight of the shore that you left. Yeah. So I think this describes that sort of symptomizes that sense of fear that people have. And I know when I've done a couple of talks and lectures and stuff here in Holland. There's one, the Willem de Koning Institute Academy, and the tutors, and this is nothing against tutors, but the tutors have their textbooks and they have their models and their case studies, and they may be current case models and so on and so on and so on. But things move so quickly now that you can't move out of you can't just move out of the education system and then suddenly expect to be successful. I mean, this is 1 in a million. You need to build that, actually living it, actually doing it, trying, testing, developing, throw ideas away. Don't be afraid of losing sight of the shore. It's continual and continual. And if you build it into your way of thinking, it's simply not as frightening. You don't have to develop a product, then take it to market. It's just part of it.
Right. It's like putting the carriage ahead of the horse. I think it's something that, I don't know why people do it. I think I had a student come into the office yesterday, and came upon this realization. And she was asking me, why do people think like that? Why do they build something and then try to fit it into people's lives? Like, why is that a natural thought process? I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if you do.
Well, I think,
But it's common. People do it all the
yeah,
time.
it's but there's a sort of I mean, I noticed that with this within the communications community. As professional communicators, I often start a little talk with asking, what is content? Sounds like an easy question, but what is content? People usually answer, oh, it's a video, or it's the stuff in a platform, or. But there's so much focus on channels that people tend to forget that it's about the content within them. And I don't even mean the fact that it's an image, but because that's a medium. But what's the actual? In Dutch, they have a word called inhoud, which is the messaging, and it's the actual content that is driving a behavior. Because a platform or a channel or a medium is just a vehicle for that content. So what I notice is that people, Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message, right? Well, it is, but there's content there, and down at this content level, it's not the fact that it's a big, infographics aren't successful. It's the information that is in those graphics that is the useful stuff. So when people are saying, "Oh, we need an infographic," or "We need a video," no, wrong way of thinking. What's your key message? What's the core messaging you want to get across? How are you going to affect behaviors with this? Then it's all about delivery, which is fine if you want to focus on delivery mechanisms, so filtering or sorting or UX or whatever it is. But the big overlooked thing is actually the in-house, the content that drives a behavioral change, and this is really what it's all about.
So how do you identify how do you identify those behaviors? Because some might argue that it's only through the beta testing and the focus groups that you understand the behavior of your client and then iterate, as like the lean startup method, Eric Ries. That's how you find out what those behaviors are. So you're arguing the opposite: incorporate the behavior from the beginning. And so what would your response be to that?
Yeah, I mean, this is an approach I'm talking about. It's difficult to do because we're not trained in it. It's not part of our education. But if you look at the earliest days of advertising, these are built on psychological models. They're built on behavioral models. But I've not yet heard, if you look, there's a book in 1927, a guy called Vladimir Prop wrote a book called, wait for it, The Morphology of the Russian Folktale. Now, if you look at what he talks about that there is a narrative structure to things. And these narrative structures are fixed, tangible, measurable frameworks that you can put content in to test it. So, for example, Star Wars is built, all the roles, all the models, all the characters are all built on the same morphology as a Russian folktale. Exactly. If you look at Hamlet, from Shakespeare, this is based on a narrative structure, a folktale, from 800 years previously, called Hamlet. So these structures, these narrative structures, actually exist. So we're going to take a quick deep dive into like some serious tech stuff now. But if you think, let's do it. But if you think about algorithms, algorithms are formulas that have dependencies and interdependencies. So you build the right algorithm, and then it multiplies or it enhances that particular behavior. I don't know a lot of people outside of what goes on behind the doors in Google who are thinking like this. The reason why Google is successful is because they're focusing on the underlying behaviors. So a really cool example is Google Ripples. So Google Ripples, have you seen that? That's really worth checking out a little video for as well.
I haven't. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, so this is about measuring G plus stuff, yeah, what happens on G plus. And it's just like a pond in which there's your networks and your connections. But then what happens is when you drop a piece of content here, it then shows the ripples of who connects it next and who spreads it to who. So you get a visual representation of the way content is moving through a network. So if you're a PR and looking at this, you think, oh my God, this is influencer stuff. You know, here's my influencers. If you think about, you know, how something goes viral, these are the effects made manifest. So there really is, there's structure to this stuff. And the only reason we don't do it is because, you know, even when we talk about UX, we talk about at a very surface level. We're not talking about we're not often talking about the behaviors. I mean, I know some great people who do, but they're very few and far between. So, you know, behaviors really are the key, really are the key. So yeah, I argue against.
That's actually. So
I argue against Mr. Rees. Yeah.
No, it's fine. A lot of people are, because I think they're coming to the realization that there's more to it than, oh, oh, I need a glass. If I would have known, I would have got some too.
It's 10:25 in the evening here, so I'm a Friday night, so I deserve it.
Hey, cheers. But I think more and more people are starting to come to the realization that it really boils down to the people. I actually had a really, I guess, heated conversation with someone who was doing this really high-tech stuff with motion analytics, and I asked him, you know, to define market, and he was saying that market is the size or the population of people that can derive value from a technology. And so I challenged him by saying, this is a really silly analogy, but I said, okay, if I were to have a 5-course meal in the middle of a busy street, would people go out and consume that 5-course meal? And probably they wouldn't. And so based on his logic, there should be tons of people that were to, you know, go and eat that meal. But there's a reason why a very small, if not, you know, zero population of people would go and eat it. And so what are those factors? What are the behavioral things involved with having someone make a decision to take an action, whether it's clicking an ad or eating that 5-course meal or reading content or watching a video? And I think more and more people are coming to the realization that there's more to it than just, here it is, it's cool, check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's on this. We use tech, and tech allows us to see things, and you know, but we have to bear in mind that these, you know, tech is a tool, and then the platforms that we use or the mediums that we communicate in are all interfaces. You know, interfaces for behavior.
Right.
So on this stuff, I was recently talking with some colleagues about what are the skills that communicators need, and I think it's pretty much the same as innovators as well. And I came up with 3 things, and the first one is data literacy. And data literacy meaning, you know, looking for the patterns in behavior in data, you know, and putting them in a human context, because we often don't focus on the, you know, we make an assumption, sort of like you just said in there, about, we take some stats and we make them predictive, you know, predictive analysis, really not that hot, you know, I mean, global financial system, you know, you know, you name it, there's a gazillion examples on there. But basically, if we focus on the behaviors, the underlying behaviors, and then treat data as a tool to understand behaviors, then we start to get somewhere. So that's data literacy. The second one is media literacy. And media literacy is really on, again, understanding what they call the social practice of mediums. So, for example, Pinterest is responsible for more career changes than LinkedIn.
Why is that?
It's sort of interesting. And when you think about the psychology of it,
What?
yeah. So, I mean, people look for a job when they go to LinkedIn, or they connect with a network or something. But Pinterest is, here's something, oh, I'm really into colors. I've got to decorate my house, and I'm going to change the color of my walls. So I start putting together palettes of colors. And then I get into a bit of soft furnishings. And then I start adding a lamp and some hey, this looks really good. And I'm starting to, mix and match. And before you know it, I'm thinking, hey, I'm pretty good at this. Other people are sharing my boards as well. This is really good. Do you know, I think I'm pretty good at this. So these sort of like behavioral drivers behind it are actually, I can't remember the source of that, but it's from some recent, somebody's just said, well, I need to brush up on my Pinterest skills. Cool. Yeah, so this is really, this is on that, understanding that media literacy means understanding how the medium affects your behaviors. And it's quite an old thing, it's called social practice. So, for example, cinema is a social practice. So in the past, people used to get dressed up, go to the matinee in the afternoon. I remember when I was a kid, I used to sneak in the back door and get into the stalls at the bottom, while people were coming out, I would go in, hide under the seats and then watch. But there's a whole social ritual that goes along that used to go along with cinema. That ritual has now changed. So we have completely different, we're exhibiting completely different behaviors because now we sit down with a pizza and a six-pack to watch a movie, or we cuddle up with a girlfriend on the couch or boyfriend or whatever it is. These are totally different social practices. So if we start to think about, so the first one was data literacy, understanding behaviors. Media literacy, that's understanding the behavioral aspect of this. And then the last one is process literacy. And what I mean by process literacy is really on a level of understanding the specific market you are in. So coming up with an algorithm to do financial stuff is great. But if you're in the oil and gas industry, there are very specific models, practices, ways of working that you also need to make sure your model works within. So this translates in a way to saying, it's part of my second point on end framing, is that if you develop your business model, your innovation within a specific context from the start, it's going to be much more successful because you have process literacy.
We actually have some good comments. Yeah. So D says, there's a good example of understanding behavior that my professor used to give dealing with women who buy feminine products. Oh.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Yes, D, would you please tell us? Let us know what it is. Would you mind coming on camera? Oh, I guess not. Okay. You should let us know what that is. I'm really curious. If you could send us a link maybe to a campaign or, a blog post. Okay. So she's going to type it here. I guess this is a great opportunity. So if there's anyone that is viewing this now that would like to submit a question, feel free to click on the blue question button below, and we'll love to talk about it live on the air. I'd also like to invite you all to, where is Steve's Twitter? Steve, would you mind if folks connected with you on Twitter?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. I guess I'll get my producers on pulling up your Twitter handle. But feel free to connect with Idea and Steve on Twitter. Idea's Twitter handle can be found here, and that's Steve's Twitter handle. So feel free to connect anytime. Uh, we'd love to continue this conversation after the Spreecast is done. Okay, I think we have, here it is. I think we have a question now from D, actually. Um, while she's typing up her story here, let's answer this question. So D asks, what advice would you give to folks who aren't accustomed to looking at human behaviors in terms of innovation? How do they start? I'm assuming that's for, let's say, engineers, for example.
Yeah.
Because artists think about human behavior all the time, whereas engineers, it's all about function of the device or the technology. So how do they start?
Yeah, I think I've got I don't know whether it's a smart ass answer or just a very, very honest answer, but it's sort of ask your mum. It really is. It's ask your mum, ask an amateur. Ask somebody who doesn't understand the intricacies of what you're working on. Because if it communicates and works and connects on that level, you're onto a winner. So
So keep it simple, stupid.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but now that because it's not just keeping it simple. It's people. As intelligent people, we tend to overthink things, and we get really deep, and we do what you explained before, this tunnel vision thing. So it's a weather check, and it's if it works for your mum or your brother or your sister or your daughter or whatever, it's going to work for more people. But it's this is why the test groups thing, I've always hated it, because you're putting people in a totally artificial situation. You're taking them out of their context. They know what they're there for. So, I mean, how is that in any way representative of the behaviors going to get in the market? It's just not going to be.
Could you tell that to every large organization, company that throws task force together to solve problems? Would you be our spokesperson? Because I feel the same way, and I'm pretty sure there are others that agree. Stacy agrees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a problem across the board. Yeah,
That's really a great
things.
advice. Talk to tons of people so they do their own weather check. Absolutely. It's partly to do with that. Because we said the uncovering and unframing. The uncovering stuff happens when when you get cross-fertilization of ideas within smart people. But the enframing, putting it in context, which is where you really tap into the behavioral stuff. This is on the enframing side. That's normal people. Because normal people use this stuff that you're innovating for,
Interesting. So I think Dee is ready with her story. So she says her professor worked for an ad agency that had a tampon account. They tried to change the box of the tampon, thinking a new design would revitalize the brand and bring more eyes to it. Naturally, that makes sense. But when it didn't work, they actually observed women shopping for tampons, and they don't even really look at the box. Really, they just reach for what they know and keep shopping. So when they changed the box too much, ladies didn't recognize it, and they jolted them out of their routine. They couldn't recognize the box, so they stopped buying it. Really?
Yeah, this is a really good example.
That's
really good
weird.
example. But these sort of things.
I
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Well, partially because I don't buy tampons, so I wouldn't know what the experience was like. But I can imagine that if my favorite brand decided to change their packaging completely, yeah, I might feel lost. You know, so
Yeah, but it's even
Stacy agrees.
it's even more importantly about the context in which, because they're talking about one product here, so they're focusing on one product. What they're not recognizing is the behaviors are this, screaming kid, pushing my pram around. I've got a shopping list with 30 things that I'm buying out. I've got to get my ass in there and out as quick as possible so I can go to pick up my other kid. So I'm running straight in and going, you know, bang, bang, bang. I'm not thinking too much. If we're talking about a luxury product, that's a different thing. But, you know, if you're talking about an FMCG, if I could call a dump on that, you've got to understand the behaviors around. Yeah, as Stacey has just said, exactly, we do it without thinking. I think that there's another really cool example about this behavioral stuff, and it's on the big data aspect. I can't remember who or where it was from, but if you do a little Googling, I'm sure you can find it. They started tracking basically the receipt of what people have bought in shops, and it was focused on women. And what they discovered by parsing this data and thinking about behaviors, in other words, not just looking at how many of this do you buy and but in a period over time, what they started to recognize was that women who at a later time started buying nappies when they hadn't bought nappies before, a couple of months before they did that, they started buying zinc supplements. I think it was zinc. So they actually, and this was, they found out at, the people who were doing the research found out that they knew that the women were pregnant before the women knew they were pregnant.
What?
So they're recognizing the body is craving zinc. Before, you know, just when they very first get pregnant, the body goes, oh my God, I want zinc, I want zinc. So then they start buying loads and loads of zinc. Out of nowhere, out of nothing. So they looked at this anomaly in buying zinc and then traced about, oh my God, these people become pregnant. You know, these women become pregnant. So then I'm thinking, okay, think about it as a marketer. So you could drop an email if somebody's just bought half a ton of zinc and say, hey, congratulations on your new kid. You might even get there before they know they're pregnant. So
that might be a little creepy.
Yeah, it would. Certainly would. But this is a sort of extreme example of data literacy. When you're looking at data, not just in terms on an analytics level, but on a behavioral level. So you're clustering data in a context. D, I'll freak out if I ever start buying too much zinc. Well, yeah, and as Stacey, as you just said, it is, you know, it could be dangerous info as well. But not many people are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, but hopefully, I think you might have opened the floodgate. Any marketers out there that are watching this might start looking up people's shopping receipts. But I definitely think that, you know, just talking about big data for a little bit, that there's so much mundane information out there that behavior is hidden within that data, though, clearly. You know, these routine things that we do are just the manifestations of behaviors, you know, things that we don't see, but things that we do all the time. And I think marketers, you know, are getting onto this, you know, at least we see it through digital ads anyway. And, you know, the different tactics that, you know, digital advertisers are starting to use to influence our behavior. So that, for example, the number of times you see a certain ad, the more inclined you are to, you know, click on it or, you know, purchase that item. Google, you know, says if I search, I don't know, coffee mugs, I'm probably going to start seeing coffee mugs all over unrelated things, you know, to coffee mugs. But the psychology is that the more impressions that it'll make, it'll be on my mind. I'll be thinking about it. It'll leverage the desire that I had for that coffee mug when I search for it, and I'm more inclined to buy it whenever that is. So I think it's becoming more popular because it's really powerful. Kind of dangerous, just like Stacey said.
Here's an interesting little challenge. Try and find a piece of data, a research or a report, an independent report or study that proves that advertising works. Try it.
Okay. I'm gonna put that on my list of things.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because seeing an ad does not affect your behavior. I mean, arguably. Put it this way, I was working recently for a B2B client in financial software. So yeah, hold on, Stacey's just got it. Honestly, I get annoyed with ads and don't buy the product. But perhaps I'm weird and mean. Well, you may be weird and you may be mean, but you're also right, Stacey. I don't know you well enough to tell you on the first bit. But yeah, this is it. So I am working for it. So I'm researching stuff about finance software, and then I keep seeing this ad come up time and time and time. I'm like, Jesus, man, come on, give me a break. I'm actively annoyed with their brand because they're interrupting me all the time. So I think the idea of permission marketing is much stronger, and permission marketing must be based on behaviors. But you know, being bombarded with more and more of the same stuff, no.
So I'm actually writing a comment here. So advertising, and because D says advertising in quotations works when you look at behavior, and it seems that there's two, I guess, two different pieces of advertising here. So advertising as a study of human behavior versus advertising as in like the physical product or the manifestation of that research, whether it's a banner ad or a newspaper ad or whatever it is. Um, so I guess depending on which one you're looking at, one seems to inform the other. Would you agree or
Well,
disagree?
I think it's interesting that I mean, there's a couple of on this specific thing that there's so I often consult on content marketing, and obviously you have to think about behaviors, and people want to advertise and they want to talk about their product. So how do you do that? So let's imagine I don't know. Let's pick it's yeah, coffee mugs. So we're buying. We need to make no coffee. Let's say coffee. So we want to choose between 4 different types of coffee. So yes, we're researching stuff. So then we see more ads about coffee. Now, what individual? Let's trick them into clicking stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So we have these different types of coffee. Now, if you think as an individual brand, your goal is to get your product in front of other people. But the behaviors behind this, the consumer behaviors are, I am in a decision-making process. Shouting about your product, saying your coffee is better than yours is not going to affect my behaviors. You're not going to persuade me. So how about if you were one of these brands, and this is the advice I often give, why don't you give a side-by-side comparison of your product to theirs, honest and open and true? Because their behaviors are, I'm trying to make a decision about coffee. So help them with that decision. And even if you say, you know, our competitors is a bit better, but our customer service really rocks and we speak normally to you like a human person, you know, a real person, then they're going to go with you because you're meeting their behavioral need. So again, there's different ways of tackling this stuff.
I like that. Meeting behavioral need. I like that a lot. That's good.
Yeah. And again, it's sort of,
I'm trying to see. I think we have a.
yeah.
Good.
I'm just reading through some of the comments here.
Oh yeah. So I know that you sent me 2 videos to share. And I don't know if you want me to share those now, or just share them later. But I thought they were 2 pretty good videos. The first, Charles Ledbetter or Leadbeater, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, talking about the era of open innovation, a video on TED. And the other is Stephen Johnson, Where Good Ideas Come From, also a TED video. So I don't know if you want me to put those on now or put them up, just put the links up, but they're 2 really good videos that I think people should check out if they're interested in learning more about what the heart of innovation and ideation and really, you know, this behavioral stuff, because that ultimately informs the decisions that you will make, whether it's about your product or about your marketing or about what research you should even do. It all really boils down to who are the people that you're gonna sell stuff
Yeah.
to. So
Yeah, I think rather these two videos together, they're sort of the two different aspects of innovation, but when you combine them, then I would call that aggressive innovation. I think they cover sort of,
okay, so
one
it's
covers the sort of internal end of it.
so they're not independent.
No, they should be,
Okay.
yeah. When you mash that stuff up together, then you got a really
All
cool
right, so
stew.
it's the combination of okay. Folks are talking about the
I
wine.
know.
You're
Yeah.
making lots of people jealous. So I'm gonna put these on the air actually,
But it
um,
is
just so people can check them out.
sure. Is anyone working on specific projects in specific areas, or ideas for a business, or thinking about launching? Does anybody have anything they're working on and have questions on those?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's ask. Um,
While we're small but perfectly formed.
well, I can tell you from I can tell you from my experience. I talked to a young lady yesterday who is passionate about radio and wants to do all this stuff with radio and change, what the future of radio would look like. And I told her, I just asked her simply, who are the people that you're going to be helping? You want to provide a service and you have ideas you're kind of lost in figuring out what you're going to provide people. Maybe the question you should be asking is, what do they need? And just thinking of her business and her idea in terms of a service to others rather than I'm providing a service that people are going to buy, just in framing it differently essentially, really just got her wheels spinning in a new direction, and she left the office pretty excited about some projects. So I think it's just a matter of perspective, like you said, in this case, in framing what it is that you're doing in the right context.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you can do a big split in terms of radio, which is basically on one side there's the sort of BBC thing, which is inform, educate, and entertain, and this is the sort of the traditional role of the broadcaster, if you like. So this is really about the subject matter and the storytelling and all this sort of stuff. And then on the other side, there's the social aspect, which I think you're referring to more, which is really on the level of providing an actual service. So I see here, these just put, I had an idea last weekend. I'm wondering how to go about doing the initial research to see if it's worth pursuing from a customer perspective, since it's something that not a lot of women really like dealing with. And that is. I'm intrigued now.
I think it might have something to do with those products that she mentioned earlier. I think it might have something to do with those.
Okay. So that, yeah, but okay. So how would you? Yeah. So dealing with a special time of the month. I really didn't expect this as a topic in this, but okay, let's go.
Neither did I.
Bring it on! It's Friday night.
Neither did I. The wine's flowing. Let's go.
Oh, is this for men or for women? Because it could be both. Huh?
That's a good question. It could be. I really wish we could get her on camera,
For
but
both. Okay.
it doesn't seem we can.
Okay. So you want to? So how are you thinking of doing the research into this? Okay, I actually here's an idea. Huh? I was working recently for a health insurance client, Oh, that's sweet. Send them nice stuff. But I think there's, if we think about behaviors again, we think about a full cycle, and we're talking about a month. So if you're thinking about what people go through at the time of the month, it's not only that, it's the build up to it, it's what happens afterwards, and it's when things are okay for that 1 week in the middle of the month as well. So actually taking a behavioral segmentation and taking that 1 month, splitting it into 4, and then thinking about what are the key behavioral needs in those periods, periods, no pun intended, then you sort of got a behavioral split that actually, works in terms of, okay, so you're saying people can go to fill a box with their favorite things and have it sent to them monthly synced to their schedule. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, considering the whole month, look at the behavioral needs in those 4 slices and dices. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I guess in this case it would be for both men and women, because as a guy, it's like, how can I make this week not as terrible for both
how
of
can
us?
how can I learn to
Let me
shut
get
my
her all
mouth
her favorite things
during this particular week?
That's awesome. So we're actually running low on time. So I hate to cut the conversation short, but D, you can certainly reach Steve on Twitter. He's at Steve Seager, or you can reach out to IDEA and we can put you in touch with him directly. Follow us at IDEAChatCNY. Also, before we end the show, I just wanted to put up the other video that Steve was talking about the era of open innovation and what, just another perspective on what innovation is moving on, into the 21st century. I think you touched on a lot of good points today, and I just want to thank you so much for your time,
Absolute
Steve.
pleasure.
Are there any last thoughts for our viewers that are watching now or who will watch this later on?
Be splendid, and remember it's people and focus on behaviors. It's all about behaviors. Whatever we do, it's all about behaviors.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Steve, thank you so much. Enjoy that glass of wine. Hopefully we'll see you on another idea chat sometime in the near future. I think maybe we can elaborate on some of the things that we talked about today, because I think it was a really good conversation.
Excellent. Thanks for asking me. And enjoy your weekends, folks. Thank you all.
All right, you too. Enjoy the holiday. Thanks. So I'd like to thank everyone for their thoughtful questions. I think this was a really, really good idea chat CNY. Again, visit our website, idea.syr.edu. You can reach us on Twitter at IDEACUes. You can also reach Steve at Steve Seager on Twitter as well. Feel free to check out those videos that we shared. Just go into the archive, pause the Spreecast, and watch those 2 videos. Those TED Talks are really, really informative. And if you all are starting to, consider starting a business, or maybe even just exploring whether or not an idea is worth pursuing, look at it in terms of behavior, because at the end of the day, when someone's going to give you $1 for something, you want to make sure that they're going to use it. You want to make sure that your product or service is valuable to them. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by knowing what they want and how your product is going to influence them the way that they want to be influenced. So thank you again. My name is Tony, and I'm signing off. Everyone have a great weekend and enjoy Thanksgiving. Actually, tune in next week. We're going to speak with Justin O of Connect Now. He was a recent student entrepreneur at SU. Now is graduated, doing some awesome things with mobile technology. And the problem he's trying to solve is business cards. What do we do with business cards in the 21st century? Do people even carry business cards anymore? Should we be carrying business cards? Since we're all connected on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Vine even. How do we stay in touch? Is that the future of business networking? Tune in next week. That idea chat will be up. So RSVP, visit the Idea Spreecast page. And again, everyone have a great weekend. This is Tony. I'm signing off. About to have some wine. Cheers.